Well, this is episode 4 of the Blur and Green podcast, and I'm so excited because I have my friend here, Alexandra, my very good friend. Here is my hype of who she is as a person in general and what she does. Are you ready? No. She doesn't know. She's unprepared. But she does a million things. First, she leads a whole music band, worship music band. She is the executive director at a church, the church that we both work at, Lakewood Church here in Houston, Texas. And that means she oversees a lot of different things, both creative and non-creative, all in one. She's a songwriter, and that's only my top 3. Then she's like, she does a lot of things. There's lots of different hats within our work and within the band called Lakewood Music. Is it a band?
Yeah, it's a worship group is what I would call it, but some would call it a band probably. Technically.
We love a band vibe. But yeah, so I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. How are you feeling?
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I am excited to do a podcast with my friend. I have done podcasts before, but never with a friend. So I'm excited, and I hope I can be serious and not laugh too much.
I know, but I literally was just saying I love to laugh. I hope we laugh as much as we can.
I love it so much.
Laughing is number 1, but then we also have like my bullet points for this conversation are actually so deep and serious. So let's see how much we laugh in and out. I do have all my notes in my handy dandy phone, so I will be grabbing that throughout. But I wanted to say 2 things from the beginning.
Okay.
First, I want to say that Alexandra actually came up with the title of this podcast. Do you remember how that happened?
I do, and I appreciate the credit, but it's like it was so not on purpose. Like it was actually like a joke when I said it, but she liked it. And so I was like, because Sarah told me about this idea and just, you know, kind of sharing a bit of what it's about and like teaching people. And I will give Sarah all the credit. Sarah has taught me so much about like everything, but specifically like photography, and I'm saying content, like it's Instagram for me. I'm not out here trying to shoot something. Yes. And she's taught me the power of blur and grain. And so I was like, Sarah, blur and grain, that's like the most powerful thing you've taught me.
Blur and grain as a way to live.
It kind of stuck.
Yes. I think it was like end of last year or beginning of this year. I don't remember if it was in our Atlanta trip.
Of this year.
Was it in our Atlanta trip? And
but it was a joke.
At first, and I thought, and I was like, that's a joke.
It was a joke.
Like, I cannot name the podcast that. And then I was like, but that is actually who I am as a person.
No, it is.
Blur and grain is me. And then I was like, actually, at first, it was grain and blur.
Oh, we switched it.
Yes, and then we switched it because I got some other opinions, and they were like, grain sounds like farmers, remember?
If you ever want to expand, you know, into farming, you're ready.
So I was like, okay, let me put the blur first, but
I actually think it's such a good story because I feel like there's a lot of cool creative things that come out of jokes. I have seen it so much. So it's like, make the joke, you know, make the joke because you don't know what's going to happen.
You don't know what is going to end up of that joke that you make. But yeah, I thought that was a fun little behind the scenes little snippet of the podcast title and how it all came to be. And now we're here. So it's only fair and right that you would be a guest on my first season. Because I'm like, really nice. You literally came up with the title of this podcast, and here we are. But in that same vein, do you remember how we met?
I remember how we met.
What's your POV of the first time we met?
I think the first time we met, I knew who you were. Wow. I knew of you because you knew a lot of people I knew. And I met you at Joe's birthday party.
Correct.
That's where I met you, and I was like, this girl is funny. She was just like, I didn't really talk to you that much, but I just remember
not interact really.
Everyone had the t-shirts because it was like a themed birthday party. Everyone's wearing the same t-shirt.
Yes.
And I specifically remember you wearing like skinny jeans and like 4-inch heels.
Yes. The way that season of my life.
And I respect it.
The way that season of my life was so extra. Like the way that heels were like tennis shoes to me. Like I couldn't
grocery store, let's put on some stilettos.
No, I've done that. And I was like, I look back at the photos of me in those years of my life and I'm like, who was she and what was she thinking? I think that was 5 years ago, approximately. I don't know if it was, yeah, it was 5 years ago.
Wow.
Or so. But yeah, that is how we met. That's my literal same story. I think we just like said hello to each other, and then the party had a whole schedule. Right. So we were just keeping the schedule going, and that was literally it. I do not recall our first like conversation. Do you?
No, I don't.
I don't know. It was obviously somewhere at church. Like, yes.
Yeah, time flies. Because that's not really when we became friends. We met, and then we became friends later. And I don't really remember.
And that's what I don't recall. Yeah, that's what I don't personally recall, but it just happened naturally. And now here we are. And now here we are. In my couch on my home.
In your couch.
But yeah, so that's a little bit. I already asked you, well, your first impression of me was that I was funny.
Yeah, that you were funny, and I was correct about my impression. I'm like, you are funny.
In my own way, in my own personality.
No, you're hilarious.
Can create some laughs.
You give me mini laughs. We have similar humor, I think.
I think so too.
It's very silly.
Recently, what makes us laugh a lot is the like AI summary of our text.
Oh my gosh, the AI summary of text. We'll be texting and I won't have read it, and I'll see the AI summary and I'll screenshot it and like send it back to her because it's just like,
and I'll do the same.
It's so funny.
Hilarious. Shout out to that AI summary.
Everything seems so serious.
It brings such joy to our laughs and our daily conversations. Okay. Well, let's get into the cues here. I said it in the intro, but Alexandra and her kind of like the input that she brings to creativity in general is she's definitely working on music at all times. Music, creative things, album creation, songwriting, all of those things, which I feel like there's so much creativity in that, and just like creating something out of nothing essentially, or like having an idea, formulating into a song, putting it as a part of an album, and then performing it, and how does a performance feel like, and it's just like such an area of creative that like I admire, and like I have my strengths, that is not one of them. And so I'm like, I have so many questions and so many different things that I want to know and know more of, because I think it's such an interesting and great realm. But like I said earlier, music is essentially, well, your job in all sorts of different ways. But how did you know you wanted to pursue a career in music?
For me, it was something I started doing at a really young age. Growing up in church, a lot of people, will be leading worship, playing in a band from a young age. And sometimes, it pans out. Sometimes they go a different direction. And it was just something that I just naturally leaned towards as like a little girl, like a 4-year-old, like, probably a lot of little girls just sing around the house. And my parents are like, oh, she likes to sing. Let's put her in piano lessons, And it's just kind of one of those things that stuck. And it just stayed with me through my teenage years, in my adult life. And I was always open to what I felt like I love music, but I was open to like what the right path for me was. And after graduating college and now working at the church, it's just really where the Lord has led me. And I really enjoy it because there's a lot of focus on music, which I love, but there's just a lot of aspects to it. Like some of the things you mentioned, like cool creative things that I never would have expected to be able to do, and just working with some people that are so creative and talented and have such different skills. That's like probably one of my favorite parts, because just the collaboration of it all is so powerful. And like to see how something from an idea, I'm like, I would never know how to have made this idea into this thing. And it's like all the people who collaborate and work on it along the way is how it gets there. And that's been a really cool process to be able to witness and be a part of, and just learn from.
I honestly think that is so true what you said about like collaboration, because I've always said like there's only how do I phrase this? You can only take an idea so far, like on your own, essentially. But then when you start bringing in other people and like are playing to their strengths, then the idea like evolves and becomes something like even greater. And it just started as like a random thought, by like one person, but then it becomes something so beautiful and great when other people kind of come in and like do the things that they're good at. And that's something that I value, like even in like the work that I do in creative too, that I'm just like collaborating is so important, and or like asking other people that you trust, like, hey, what do you think, or like, what would you do to this, etc., because I've seen it in my life and in my career, like how much farther something can go, like an idea can go when like more people are like involved and stuff like that. So I think that that is so key and so important. You said that essentially music has been a part of your life like forever, and then you went to college for some time, and then you started working at the church, and that's kind of how you got, you know, the role that you have now. What did you go to school for, and how did you segue into like, okay, I want to focus on like worship leading and music full time? How was that?
Yeah, I went to the University of Texas and I studied communications, which I really enjoyed. It's not like exactly what I do, but there was a lot of good knowledge that I, you know, that I keep with me still. Just learning is cool. Totally. So that was a great experience. I graduated in 2020, which was during the pandemic. So I always say I graduated on a YouTube video, because I literally did, like, crazy, pressed play and watched my name scroll by. I was like, this is cool. But all unique. Yeah, it makes for a really great, unique story. And now it's a great memory. Yeah. So that was interesting. But because I graduated during the pandemic, everything was not particularly normal at the time when I was, to be very corporate about it, entering the workforce. Yeah. So I always knew I wanted to be back at the church, and I was blessed that they wanted me there. Yeah. So I knew that's what I was going to do, and I was kind of just trying to find my place. And just began working with the team, the worship team, and everything kind of worked out where there was a lot of, you know, how God works everything out. Like, just a lot of transition happened at that time that we never would have expected, like, ever. So it just allowed for there to be a space for me to enter and to have to step up. And like, looking back at it now, I had no idea what I was doing. I still have so much I don't know what I'm doing. But when you're just put in a position where you have to do something, you just step up to the plate. Yes. And obviously, like, I believe that God helps us do that. 100%. And now looking back, I'm like, if it wouldn't have been those situations, if everything wouldn't have worked out that way, I don't think I'd be where I am today, because I would have never made those decisions on my own. Like, I would have never been like, I'm going to do this. I'm bold enough to say, like, let's start really releasing music. Let's start. It just, like, certain things happened, and it was like, I just started doing it. Yeah.
And then one thing led to another. And then, it's crazy what you just said about things happening that you like never expected that would happen, because the way that God does some plot twists is like so insane. We weren't like friends at that time, so I don't know or anything really how that went, but like I have seen just throughout the trajectory of my own career and like the different things, like the different doors that have either opened or closed in my life that have changed everything. And it's like literally one day something changes, like out of nowhere. And you're just like, what? And then maybe in that moment it doesn't feel like so big or so serious, but then you look back on it like a year later, and I'm like that was huge. Like, that was huge for my life, that I like one day I woke up and like this door just totally shut that forced me into something else, or like a random door just totally opened and now I'm here. And it's like, it's crazy to see like how that unfolds, but ultimately that's kind of like God shaping where you're meant to be, and like how that naturally kind of happens. You said something about how once you started in your role, you decided, or collective decision, however it was, to like really start releasing music or so. So can you provide some context there with like, as far as like when you, I guess, took the leadership on of like the music and the worship at the church? Where was it at that moment? Like, I know right now it's like a full worship, well, you said it earlier, worship group. Okay. I was gonna say band again. You can say band. And I was like, wait, I'm saying it wrong. Right now it's like a fully fleshed out worship group / band, you know, Lakewood music, and you know, there's like, you've done live albums and different type of things, but at the moment where you started, where was that at? I believe from my memory, it wasn't even titled like Lakewood Music even when you started, right?
No, so it was kind of the young adult movement at the church, and they were they have been for years, but while I was at school and stuff, it was going strong, and they were writing and working on music and releasing it. And kind of when I came into the picture, and this was through outside people suggesting this was not even my suggestion, but we got connected with some outside organizations and distribution like platforms that help release music, and just gathered with outside organizations that helped us take it further. Kind of what we were talking about from the beginning, just how an idea can go so much further, because you need that support. So 100%. That was kind of what changed at that time. And then we decided to just call it Lakewood Music, not complicate things, and just be one group from our church, and kind of put all the manpower behind that instead of splitting up different brands, whatever. So that was been like 2020, 2021. And then we've just tried to be consistent since then. But that was the very, very beginning.
That was the conception.
Of this era. Because throughout the years, there's been different.
There's always been
eras of music through Lakewood. But this has been the past like 5 years. This is what it's been.
Wow. Love that. I'm like, I love a little behind the scenes, how everything came to be. So segueing more into, okay, now let's get into like the nitty gritty of like the music and like the process and like the behind the scenes of like how things come about. I know you write a lot of songs, actually, if not maybe most of the songs that are put out from Lakewood Music. But what is like do you have a songwriting process? Do you have like, throughout all the songs that you've written and the things that you've put out, do you have like your own little like ebb and flow with it? Or like how does an idea kind of come to life in the form of a song for you?
We do, to just harp on collaboration, but like we have so much collaboration in our songwriting process, and incredible writers we've gotten to work with, and there's incredible writers on our team. And I know everyone has their own unique process. And when we come together, you know, there's some similarities. But speaking solely for myself, like my process, so to speak, is to just try. Like I would consider myself an amateur songwriter. And with getting to work with amazing songwriters, it's made amazing songs come. Or I think they're amazing. But if I can say that. But for me, I'm like, you never know what an idea can turn into. There are songs where I'm like, I would have said, that's not a good idea. And now it's a song that I love and that I've seen so many people connect to and touch so many people. You just never know where it's going to go. And so for me, it's like, don't give up. Just try. Just write down all the little things that come into your head and your notes so that when you sit down at the piano, you're not like, what do I say? You remember like those times when you really did feel inspiration, because a lot of people, myself included, you want to wait for like inspiration to strike to sit down, and it's like it doesn't,
or to feel super creative.
It doesn't really work like that. So, but I do think there are moments where you feel that way. So it's helpful for me to write a lot of things down. To make terrible voice memos that literally sound like this girl has never sung one day in her life. Like seriously, I don't know.
Oh my gosh, I wish we could listen to. But that's such a vulnerable.
I would never allow that.
I have some of my own. Like. And it's a scary place to be.
It's so scary. It's really scary. But in the end, it's really cool, because I'll be like, okay, this was this and it wasn't bad. But even before it goes to a group of songwriters, like I'll think, oh, this is how I could have made it better. So
totally.
The process, I mean, can evolve even before you go into a room with other songwriters. But again, I would consider myself an amateur songwriter. But I do think that anyone, even a professional, would agree. Like, trying and repetition and sitting down and just seeing what you get.
Totally. That's actually such a common thing in like the creative process, which is like every conversation that I've had about, you know, how do you get better and how do you like kind of perfect your craft and stuff like that. It really is about repetition. Like that is the key. And I know that like maybe people expect more of like a golden nugget on like how to be a better photographer, like how to be a better songwriter, how to be a better graphic designer, whatever it is. But in reality, it really is just trying and kind of failing sometimes, or like trying and then collaborating with someone, trying and then maybe scratching it and trying all over again, trying. Like it's always just like putting in the reps and like really, really learning from like the last time, because I'm sure it's true to you the same way that's true to me, from like the first shoot that I did to like now being able to shoot. It's like so much easier. I know my process, I know my strengths and whatever. The same way that like maybe from the first song you had an idea about or you first wrote to like now you probably also are like, oh, I've learned so much and I know more of like how to do this out of like a more secure / comfortable place. So I feel like that is something key for everybody in any creative field, is just like keep trying. I love what you said actually about just trying literally anything and not letting it hold you back, thinking that maybe like it won't be good, because it can always morph into something that you never thought that it could.
Yeah, and there's something kind of freeing about being like, I can do any idea, I can try anything, because I'm just here by myself doing it. Yeah. So it's like there's no pressure, and I feel like that's a very creative space to be in, because I'm like, I don't ever have to show anyone unless I want to. Yes. And I personally really enjoy that. Yeah. And hopefully I can be bold enough to show people. Anyone listening, you can show somebody, but but it's cool to be like, I don't have to. Like I could just do this for me right now. Like
that's actually such another like valuable nugget what you just said, is like doing something just for yourself too. Yeah. Like sometimes when we create things out of like for others or out of like a place of pressure to make it good or whatever, it kind of like hinders the like natural way the process should be. But when like your mindset is like, no, I'm just putting this idea out there for myself because I like it, and then I'll see kind of where it goes. So I think that's really great. I also want to talk about kind of like the real behind the scenes of like the creation of like an album or like a music project. So I think for, I guess, the commoner like me, like the non-knowledgeable people on like the music industry and kind of how that goes, like I would just think like, I'm like, oh, people like write songs, go to a studio, record them, whatever, and then like publish them. Like, but I know it's like there's really not that. It's really, there's so many other things that go into it. So like I guess from your perspective, like what is the process like of creating an album or putting like a music project out there? And I also want to know like what's your favorite part of the process? Like for some people it's like, you know, the songwriting. For others it could also be like publishing it out there or the content that comes with it afterwards, like, or filming music videos or whatever it is. But like personally, what is your favorite part of creating an album, and what does that process look like?
Well, it kind of depends on what we're creating for us specifically, because we've done studio albums or studio projects, and then we've done a live album. Live would probably be the most common thing we're doing. So for something like that, there's obviously the event where you're recording it live, but there's so much that goes into it. Obviously you have to write the songs, you have to decide what songs you want, you have to decide who's singing the songs,
oh my gosh,
the band workshops the songs, you know, all that, and then you record it for us, and then you have a lot of post production that goes into it, of overdubbing things, obviously like mixing and mastering. So it's a whole process, and then you have the whole creative side of album artwork and the style guide and what era you want this to be. Me and Sarah love the word era. I'm like,
we love like the word era.
I love everything to be an era, but
literally era. I live in eras.
No, me too.
Like
probably too 100%. Much. Like just
yes. But we're self-aware and we know when an era is ending and when it's time for a new one.
Right. Yeah. So then there's the post-production, everything that comes with it. Then you get it mixed. Then you get it mastered. And once you have it ready, it is so funny because it almost like feels old by that time, and it's not even out. And then you finally everything gets released, and then there's such a long life after it's released. And yes, there's like many times when we're releasing stuff, it's like, okay, we're already working on what's next, but there's so much life to what has just been put out there, and like ways that you can see it connect with people. And you know, you just have to, from me, I'm like, I have to remind myself this is new for people, not old, because the process is so long.
It is, especially in music. I'm seeing that.
But it's every step is enjoyable to me. I'm trying to think. It's like, it's hard to not say, like, because I do have a bit of a type A brain, so it's hard for me to not say like releasing it, completing it is my favorite part. I do enjoy the journey. That's not to say I don't, because I do. Like, truly, I love to see every step come together, but like it is cool to see it be like, oh, we did this like as a team. This is something cool we got to do together, and now it's out there.
Yes.
So I would be lying if I said my Typhoid brain doesn't love when it's like out. Or just like submitted.
When it
submitted
it's
counts
like
for
project
me too.
Complete, like in your brain you can like make the check mark, and like that's the enjoyable one of the most. I think I would feel the same, because it's like all the hard work and then you finally launch it. I think like out of all the creative fields, I'm seeing like music is one of those where like, the idea maybe came to you, but by the time it's like fully out there and a part of a project, it's been over a year most of the time. And so like seeing like the life cycle of that like idea, I think is like super fun and super interesting out of all the different like like I said, fields and industries within creative. I think that that's one of the things that I really enjoy about the music one. Speaking of creating an album and all of that stuff, obviously there's a lot of vision and inspiration that you kind of have to give with every single like part of the process that you just laid out. So how do you gather inspiration, or what does that look like for you? I mean, it's different for all of us and all of the different things that we do, but specifically for you, like how does inspiration come to you and any of
so with albums, obviously they typically have a name, and that typically coincides with the song. So I feel like there's a lot of like creativity that comes from the song, or feels like it's very like blatant kind of. Like, for example, our most recent album is called Oh How Worthy, and that was the title track of the song. And that just like immediately sparked like this thought of like royalty, worthy, crown. And so the album cover does have a crown on it, but I'm not a designer. Like I'm not. So I actually really think it's cool to get to work with designers and just give them a little bit, because I'm like, I'm not trying to do your thing. Like this is why we want to work with you, because you're awesome at it. And to just be able to give a little bit of heart, a little bit of vision, and see how they run with it. That's another area where it's like the collaboration is so cool, because like I'm not going to come up with this, but then you hear the song and you hear a little bit of behind the scenes, and then you just start getting, rounds of treatments and whatever, and continuing to like work back and forth. It's like you end up with something that you both love. And it's just cool to see it come to life, almost from another person's perspective, but from your heart kind of.
That is like one of the things that I love the most, is like how like when you get to work with other people in different fields, whether it's like design, photo, or video, or just any type of like social content or whatever, like being able to like share kind of like a rough idea or like vision of what you want it to be, and then seeing how other people kind of interpret that is one of like my personal favorite things that like I do in like my day-to-day like in my job, because oftentimes like you're thinking of something and then someone else kind of has such a different perception. Like we all have different ways in which we like process information like in our brains, and seeing how other people will take that like an event or like it's keywords. Sometimes when I'm like giving briefs and I don't have a lot of time, I just say like a couple keywords. I'm like, I want to feel like this and that, and then like seeing how other like people in our team kind of like make that come to life in their own way is always like something that I think is like so cool, and another reason why collaboration is like so key, because I'm like, half of the things I'm like, I'm not out there like designing myself for, so like bringing in and working in with other creatives that can kind of put their own like twist and spin, and then going through the rounds and seeing where it evolves is like the best. I love those carousels of like the process of like the first round to the last round. I haven't done any of those because it feels like like you're putting people on blast, but it's like that's not. But like seeing it through through all the rounds is like, wow, it really got here at the end of the day.
Totally.
And I honestly think that that's like super fun. Okay, so speaking of inspiration and kind of where you get your inspiration from and all of that, how do you balance staying authentic but also exploring new things? Because I'm sure like, obviously Lakewood Music is like a brand of its own, right? So it has its own like tone and voice and that. So you kind of want to always balance, or I'm not assuming, but at least for me in my work in creative, I always want to balance like doing things that feel like myself, like natural to me, but also trying to explore maybe something new. Finding that balance is obviously different for everybody. So when you have to kind of toggle between those two things, like how do you portray that?
Totally. I mean, for me, I feel like it's always very clear when it's something you don't like. Sometimes I almost think it's harder to find what you do like. Yeah. Not to be negative, but so to me, I'm like, oh, I'm open to trying new things, because I think it'll be really clear when it's not that. And so if it doesn't feel that way, then it's like, okay, let's keep going down this road. And you know, at the end of the day, it's like it's all just your opinion. So it's like, what do we feel like for this season? What matches this vibe? And then we'll do something else. Like, I think a lot of people, myself included, could be really, it needs to be perfect. It needs to be blah, blah, blah. And it actually doesn't.
All that pressure.
You know, and it's never gonna be. So it's kind of, if you can just like free yourself from that and just know that you'll know what's not right. That's good. That's been a good way to help me kind of decipher.
That's actually such a good perspective, because that is so true. Like, when you are seeing something or hearing something that you ultimately, you'll just like know in your gut or like in your spirit, like that's not it, you know. But like oftentimes I have tried to make things that don't feel like authentic to me like work, and then I always end up so frustrated at the end, because I'm like, I really forced that so bad, and like I literally didn't have to force it. But that's so true, to just like staying authentic and just knowing and trusting that you know what you want in the direction, you know, that you want to take things in. Another thing I wanted to talk about actually was, obviously in your role, you lead a team of creative people, musicians, other songwriters, other worship leaders, like producers, etc. And that can be overwhelming at times, I'm assuming. I also lead a creative team, so I'm like, we actually talk about this a lot. And we go through similar things, but our fields are different and separate, but it's always so comforting that we can like relate to each other, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's kind of the same thing that I'm, you know, dealing with, or that I'm struggling with. So I was wondering, what are some challenges that you have had in like leading other creatives, and also just sharing like, what have you learned, or like what can you encourage other people that are probably starting leading a team, and maybe going through some of the things that maybe you went through when you started leading a team. Like, what have you learned through leading a team, and through the challenges that you may have faced?
I mean, I think it's a challenge because leading people can always be a challenge. I think maybe it adds a level of more emotion if they're creatives, because people feel passionately about what they're creating, you know, which I think a lot of it is just having respect for everyone and respect for differing ideas. And like I even said a few minutes ago, like at the end of the day, knowing that, you know, everything is just someone's opinion. Like there's creativity, there's not a right or wrong way. Like at the end of the day, it's like, who is responsible for making the decision? They're going to be the decision maker, but that doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, and that doesn't mean the other option was bad. You know, so I think just establishing like a culture of respect for everyone's ideas, something that we always try to incorporate, is just keeping everything positive. Even if you have something that is like a critique or is critical, like there's a positive way to say it, because it is someone's idea, and that doesn't mean you walk on eggshells, but you know, it's okay to be careful. Like that doesn't mean that you're being like, you're getting walked all over just because you're trying to be kind in the way you say things, and you know, understanding it's like, this song might be someone else's favorite song, it might be someone's least favorite song, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it's like, okay, we're gonna make a decision about what happens with this song, and we can be kind and respectful about it always. So that's like a huge thing for us. My brother has taught me a lot about that, because he's very, very good at delivering he's really good at delivering like a critical message in the nicest way possible. You don't
Yes.
even know you're receiving like you don't even know you're receiving like feedback
Yes.
that could be
Yes.
less than positive. And
Yes.
so I think if you just always consider like these are people with
Yeah.
hearts, and you know, you can go about it in the best way.
Yes. Something that I learned back in school when I was going to like school for like business, I took like a class on like HR or something like that, and they taught me about this like total person approach, which is like when you view people on your team as like a total person and not just the person that's there like 9 to 5 doing like a task or like just being a part of like a team dynamic. And that has helped me so much because I'm like, at the end of the day, they're the people on my team are like have emotions and things, and then there's a lot that I don't know, like about what they're carrying, or like if they feel emotionally attached to this one thing for this particular reason, you know, because that's not necessarily something that you like blast out at all times. So I feel like seeing the people on your team as like the total person approach and seeing that like they have backgrounds and they have things like is such a helpful thing to do. And such like, I guess sometimes we can get so bogged down with like the work, you know, that I always have to stop myself and be like, no, like at the end of the day they are humans like you just said, and like they're going through different things. They may be thinking that like their idea maybe wasn't good, and it's not even that. It's always like your idea will always go to like the opinion of someone, you know. So I feel like that's like really good insight. It's funny because I was talking about this 2 episodes ago but on the other side of like being the creative, and then like there's like a stakeholder, and when you get told no, or that doesn't, you know, look good. And our perspective that we were sharing like 2 episodes ago was like having a healthy boundary of like emotional detachment from some of the things that we put out, because at the end of the day, literally what you just said, like someone may not see it the way that like we see it as we are creating it. So it's always like balancing that is like so key and so important. And I think that's something that's really good to take into account when you are leading a creative team, whether it's a worship team at a church or something, or just like any other sort of like creative team in like an agency or stuff like that. So yeah. Okay, so now we're gonna get into the tea time, but we're doing something different here. And on this tea time,
scared.
We're doing like a rapid fire tea time question edition.
Okay.
Are you ready?
No.
For my rapid fire questions? With the help of my hopefully one day sponsor, ChatGPT.
This episode is brought to you by ChatGPT.
Quite literally, this podcast is brought to you by ChatGPT. Okay, there's a lot here. I think I'm going to do all of them, and then we'll see what happens. All right. Okay, rapid fire edition.
Asking me, I'm scared.
Okay. Hold on, because I have 2. Okay. Who was your first crush?
Jesse McCartney.
Wow, I love that.
Loved him. Beautiful song.
What's the most reckless thing you've done in the name of love or like?
Next.
Ever slid into someone's DMs?
Yes.
Wow. What's your toxic trait but make it charming?
I don't know how to make it charming. I'm not toxic at all.
I love that about you. Have you ever ghosted someone, and do you regret it?
No, I have never.
She's strong, girly. What's a moment you felt way too powerful for your own good?
Right now.
We love the word powerful.
I love the word powerful.
Powerful has so much power.
Is so powerful.
What's a petty hill you'll die on? If you have one.
Like if I know I'm right, I'm like gonna fact check, and I'm gonna be like, I am right.
Period.
And you
no questions asked.
If I know.
Yeah. Who's the first person you call when something wild happens?
Honestly, you would be in that group, Sarah, because she would have a great reaction. And she would talk through every single thing that happens like 6 times.
The way that I love to observe things.
Observation.
And then the way that I love to debrief on set observations.
Yes. It's
crazy.
So good. My story about
Do you have a secret talent that would shock people?
Do I have a secret what?
Talent?
No, if I had any talents, I would make sure people knew. I would not keep them a secret.
I actually like that. I'm going to keep that in there. Okay, that tea time was crazy.
I can't believe I said that. That's for the clickbait.
That tea time was crazy and rapid fire and 30 seconds of just chaos, I guess. One of the things that Alexandra and I determined this year is that we have good travel chem and photo chem. Because let us explain to everybody what that is. Who actually created that was Sabrina Carpenter. She explained to the world, actually on a podcast, I believe, about travel chem. Was it? No, wait, she labeled it something else.
Ours is travel chem.
Ours is travel chem. I'm now realizing this.
Yes.
I'm now realizing that the way she actually says it, and she has a song about it.
Yeah.
May not be suitable to share.
But we have good photo chem because my right side is my good side. And her left side is her good side. So we take a photo together.
As long as it's just us two, will be so great. When more people are in the mix, there's just so many dynamics and so many times we have to flip-flop and swap around. I will forever crack up at the photo shoot that we did for your last birthday. And so many great pictures came out of that. But we were literally editing. I was editing live with you there. And we were going through all of the photos that just were not it. And those photos are just so humbling every single time. But now we realized we have good photo chem, travel chem. We went on a trip together earlier this year. And the vibes were just so up.
Yeah.
The whole way through.
Get it done.
And we, at the end of the night, were like, we would debrief the happenings and the observations and the events of that day. And then we were like, okay, we're done. And we would just then get on TikTok.
Friendship.
Yeah,
silent friendship.
If you can be silent with someone and do nothing and it's not awkward.
Be on your respective phones.
Yes.
Full volume.
Yes.
That's when you know. That
is when you know that you have hit a new level in your friendship. Okay, anyways, bringing it back and closing this episode. We got our laughs out, which is great and incredible. But I do want to bring it back because something that I want to do in all my episodes is make sure that with every guest that I have on, that we can have a chance to encourage someone that's listening, that maybe stumbled upon this episode, that wants to do some of what you're doing, and things of that nature. So what advice would you give to someone watching this that wants to get started in either songwriting or music, or if we niche it down to like the church world, someone that wants to get started in leading worship?
Yeah. I would say to anyone who wants to get started in songwriting, don't wait to start. Just start, because there's never going to be a perfect time. You're never going to have the perfect opportunity. But like we've talked about through this episode, it's just the practice. It's just getting in there. And I think every single person has unique gifts and talents that God has put in them. And you never know what he wants to do with your talent. You never know just what could happen through you putting yourself out there, taking a step of faith, being bold, starting. And I think for any aspiring worship leaders, get involved in your local church and keep God first place, because that's really what worship leading is about. And just take time to worship in private, because, you know, that's what makes it so special when you're on stage in public. But you never know how God will use your life when you just 100%. Submit to him. So
100%. I actually have a teeny nugget to piggyback off of that, because a lot of people may think that worship leading is equivalent to the stage and the platform and all of that stuff. But some of us, this is my own tea time. Some of us have a calling to worship. One thing that we didn't talk about this whole episode is another thing we have in common is that we're both pastors' kids.
Right.
So I am also a pastor's kid, and I grew up like leading worship at my parents' church and that whole spiel. throughout my life that has looked different in different seasons. In this current season, I'm not like on a stage or anything like that, but I've always had a calling to worship. And, you know, you just said get plugged in at your local church and worship in your private time. Sometimes we think that feeling a calling or like a sensation to like leading worship may be equivalent, like literally I just said this, to being on a platform or whatever. But sometimes you have a calling to worship in another capacity. Like me personally speaking, I find little moments, whether it's in like my life group or like my private time. One time I was gonna lead worship at the Bible study that we have, like Abide, and that ended up not working out, which I was like so thankful for. But there's little moments where you can expand on that calling that you have, and it's not necessarily equivalent to you know, being on the stage on Sunday, you know. And there's other moments where you can lead worship during the week in smaller gatherings, or just like by yourself, or like with your family, you know, and you are leading people into worship at that moment. And it's not necessarily the Sunday morning, you know, experience, because that's something that God has been speaking into my heart lately. And right now, when you said that, it made me realize like everybody may have that calling in just different capacity. So don't think that if you have like this calling to do something, it only means it's in this one time. Like it's only on a Sunday in the morning on the main stage. It could be in many other capacities. So take that as you will, people of the internet. Take the nuggets and run with them. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, well, what a fun time we just had.
So fun.
We laughed. We got deep. We did tea time. Both you and me, I guess, now towards the end. But thank you so much for coming on. I think everything that you have to say is so valuable. I think we have similar journeys with just like our upbringing in certain ways, and then knowing we wanted to ultimately like use the calling that God gave us, you know, at church, and exploring what creativity looks like there in the different fields that we have. And I'm so thankful that you're able to come on and share some of the things that are in your brain when it comes to like creativity and the way that you lead. So thank you for coming on. Okay, so it's been such a fun episode. Thank you so much for coming and being a part of the podcast, which name title you created.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on.
And thanks everyone for tuning in to episode 4. Obviously follow Alexandra on Instagram. I will link her social stuff somewhere in here, and follow this podcast Instagram, Blur and Grain Podcast, at Blur and Grain Podcast on Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube and all of those things that I still don't have yet memorized in my brain. But I'll see you guys on the next episode. Goodbye.